Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True, and today we put a bow on a crazy month of trade shows and trade show news by welcoming the director of the running event in Switchback, Christina Henderson, to the show to give us the lowdown behind the forthcoming Switchback Spring. But first, am I a broken record? Yeah, I'm a broken record. Please rate and review The Rock Fight on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on all the other podcast platforms that you might be listening to us on. This feedback really helps the show grow. It's why we ask. And also, if you send an email to myrockfight@gmail.com after you've left us a rating or a review, we'll send you a Rock Fight sticker. Okay, let's keep the trade show train rolling and start the show. Since we broke the news here on the Rock Fight earlier this month about Switchback Spring, the new outdoor show that debuted at the running event and is now set to debut as a solo act next June in Nashville, a lot has happened. We had the Outside Festival. We had GOA Connect. We had Outdoor Retailer. LinkedIn has been abuzz with opinions. And yes, rocks have been thrown. And through it all here at the Rock Fight, we've tried to be a sounding board for the evolution of events here in the outdoor community. So we welcomed Wes Allen on to talk about Switchback. We went to GOA and we went to Outdoor Retailer. We did not go to the Outside Festival, but it sounds like it will be a perfectly serviceable music fest going forward. Which brings us back to Switchback. What can we expect? Why are they doing it? What do they think about the criticisms on having it in June? Until the show happens, we can't know too much unless we talk to Christina Henderson. Christina has spent her career in events, media, and athletics, and for the past 5 years, she's been the director of the running event, which is, in case you didn't know, the biggest running show here in the U.S. And Christina was part of the team that introduced Switchback, adding an outdoor-focused arm to the past 2 editions of the running event, and is the show director who will be spearheading the solo edition of Switchback next spring. So to get some answers, Christina is here today and joining Justin and me to dive into the decision to give Switchback its own show, why they're holding it in Nashville, and what we should expect when the show comes around next year. Welcome back to the Rock Fight, where we're wrapping up Trade Show Month with Christina Henderson from the running event in Switchback Spring. All right, we're joined now by Christina Henderson, who's the director of the running event and Switchback, and has spent her career at the intersection of media, events, and athletics. Welcome to the show, Christina. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Colin. Very happy to be here.
We were talking yesterday, and the episode that just went up today, we're recording this on Tuesday the 25th, and we just got back. We went to Outdoor Retailer last week, and I immediately developed COVID, which was lovely. We were supposed to record this last week, and I said to Justin yesterday, I'm like, if nothing else, thank you for choosing Nashville, because of this sort of tradition of putting all these trade shows at high altitude, arid climates for people who maybe aren't used to the altitude. Thank you for that. That was a good choice, and for no other reason than I bet you the illness rate comes down for Switchback than any other trade show.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's a good question. What do we have to look forward to in terms of unexpected, climatological and or geographical consequences for attending the show?
Yeah, great question. I hope none. Right? Okay. I feel like Nashville's maybe heat, although will be that might be the only thing, but
or gastrointestinal distress based on all
but that's not Nashville's fault. Yeah. Okay. My lips are still ruined from salt. That was the driest air I have ever experienced. I mean, I've been to Salt Lake many times, but there was something particularly bad about last week's air in Salt Lake, or whenever that was. 2 weeks
I'm going to blame that. That's how I got COVID. It was the air. That's what it was.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you. I am feeling better. Events and festivals and trade shows are sort of like the topic du jour right now. There's a lot of them happening. And with news that came earlier this month that Switchback will be adding a spring event to next June, has definitely added a whole new element of the conversation. So I guess let's just start with, can you just take us through the decision to, bring Switchback Spring to Nashville in 2025? How did it all start?
Absolutely. And yeah, it has been so fun to kind of be part of that conversation and see so much discussion around trade shows. I think it really shows the importance that they play in the industry. So we have taken a very long-term approach to Switchback. So, we launched Switchback at the running event in 2022. We were seeing this crossover between running and outdoor. We had interest from historically outdoor brands coming to the running event. We had outdoor retailers coming. And, we wanted to be deliberate about their attendance at TRE. If they were going to come, we wanted to make sure that they found value in attending. So we launched Switchback at TRE in 2022. That went well. But we said, hey, is this the full need? Is there anything else we can do to support this industry? So we hired a third party to come in and do a research study. What is the need in the outdoor industry for events, right? When are they needed? Where should they be? And so they did this big research study on the need, and it came back that, there was this need for a gathering in the spring-summer timeframe. Mm-hmm. So that took place in 2023. And so we did Switchback at TRE again. We will do Switchback at TRE again in 2024, and we will officially launch the standalone Switchback Spring in 2025. So, this was not a decision that was made lightly. It was not a decision that was made quickly. We know this is a big deal, and we wanted to be sure that we could do it well and do what was right for the industry.
Is it common to hire third-party like consultants to do things like that? I mean, it makes total sense. I wouldn't have thought about that.
I'm not sure. So the parent company, Diversified Communications, we have events in numerous industries, and we do it, right? Especially if we're going to launch something, right? You can't come in and just pretend you know what's best for an industry. So
well, some people would.
Are you talking about us, Colin?
I'm talking about everybody in the outdoor industry. Okay. Everybody thinks they've got it figured out.
Well, and I think part of it is, some brands started saying like, hey, what if you did this for the outdoor industry? We like the running event, but we need our own distinct gathering. But to your point, you can go and you can get the answers that you want. You can say, do you need this? Don't you need this? Right. And so taking yourself out of it and, bringing in kind of that third party who doesn't, they're just asking the questions. You could have those conversations, which we've had many of, but then you can point to the research and say, okay, this is needed, and we have the team, and we can do it well.
Yeah, I think if there's a mistake, just again, hindsight looking back, because I remember being part of those surveys we'd get from outdoor retailer, and I've said repeatedly on the show, probably since the beginning of the show, that I remember being in like the late aughts, like 2000 aughts, and being like, do we need to go to OR? Like still kind of questioning what the purpose was even then. And also I think a lot of the changes that were made over the, the following, 10 plus years at that show was relying on the data from the surveys they would send out. But there was never there's never huge consensus about timing or what to feature at the show or what, any of those things. And so they were kind of always on their heels about like any changes they would make and how many people they were actually serving with those changes. And I think that's one reason why we've ended up where we are. And I think so I think starting from a place of like, let's get a little kind of unbiased data is probably a really smart place to start for sure. I guess when I look at it from, there's been 2 iterations, like you mentioned, of Switchback at the running event. What makes you feel like it can work on its own? I mean, it's still kind of early days by that regard, right? You've had 2 things to kind of pull from, and then to say, well, let's pull it out of TRE, which brought its own audience. What makes you feel like that Switchback can be its own thing?
Yeah, I mean, the research that we did shows it, right? But then I think beyond that, it's important, we do see this crossover between running and outdoor, but it's important that we continue to, give a distinct gathering to each industry. And so, I think it would have felt half-hearted to the outdoor industry to just say, hey, like join the running event, and then we're going to do that again in the spring. And, we wanted to show our dedication and commitment to the outdoor industry and say, this is a gathering for you, right? And, will there be some like historically running brands at Switchback? Most likely, they're that because of that crossover, but it will be led by outdoor. And, that is who we are creating value for at Switchback Spring.
How did you decide on Nashville?
We talked about that already. It's just illnesses. No, I'm just kidding. Wow.
Right.
okay.
And yeah, the illnesses,
And
the
the chicken.
hot chicken sandwiches.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
was that
more
part-
you need
was
to know,
that so-
Justin? Jeez, man. Like,
I mean, was that part of what the sort of research showed, that there was a lack of representation in the Southeast, or is that Southeast, South, whatever that's called? Yeah.
It came up as one of the possibilities where there could be, a successful event. We went into it with, we want it to be accessible and in a different location than outdoor events have historically taken place, drivable from, a core like audience. And then it really came down to also the venues that were available. And so, as you saw, in year one, we're at a Gaylord property. So, for Switchback, we haven't gotten into it yet, but the idea is we want to bring everyone together. We want to drive connections and thought leadership, and by bringing it to a Gaylord property, you are in one place, right? The exhibit space is there. You're eating there. You're celebrating there. So you're going to drive those connections in a real way. That if you were like in a hall, in a convention center, people are scattered, and you're not like driving those connections as meaningfully.
What is it? What's a Gaylord property?
It's essentially a large hotel, but
Okay.
so you sleep there, and then but there's an exhibit hall there.
Okay.
it's like
And
all
there
in
are
one.
restaurants
Yeah.
there, and
You don't have to leave if you don't want to, kind of thing.
No.
In fact, you
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
Nope.
Here's the padlock. Make sure this is on your door every night.
Yeah.
We will open it for you in the morning. Yeah. No, I think that was because I got to go to two Denver shows, and I feel like Salt Lake is so uniquely set up, and we think even though it's much smaller, we observed this last week. It just always felt like this the hotels in Salt Lake when the show was at its peak felt like they were almost like dormitories. Like, oh, where are you staying? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, let's meet up at the Beer Hive or whatever. And when we would go to Denver, it felt very much like, where is this? There's a party tonight? Well, where is it? And it was never that far away, but it just felt much more like it was being held in a city and you had to navigate city stuff. So I think that's smart. Like, just people may say they don't want that. They want to experience a city, but ultimately they're going to want that at the end of the day.
Yeah, and as events grow and scale, of course that happens, right? But
Yeah.
In year one, when we expect a more intimate event, like this felt right.
Well, so the running event, of all this kind of event conversation, is sort of, I don't know if it's like the exception that proves the rule, because it was sort of, even from the beginning, kind of felt like it's just its own thing. And I got to go to a few of them. It's been over 10 years, but there was enthusiasm. And everybody at a lot of these shows wants to say, like, oh, we have education and we do all these things. And like the running event actually does it. Like retailers really value going for reasons outside of just the exhibitor hall. And so it kind of created its own sort of value and vibe. And how much do you feel like, did Switchback kind of benefit from that? How much of that do you feel like is going to carry over from that to a standalone Switchback event? Like what can, I guess, attendees expect from maybe who are familiar with the running event and to now enter Switchback next spring?
Yeah, absolutely. The running event is very special, right? We have created this community feel, and there's been a lot of conversation on this podcast and in just some of the discussions that are taking place about the need for events to have a very particular point of view and to serve a very specific group and purpose, right? And what we've seen with the running event is there is space and there is a need to bring everyone together and to create an accessible and inclusive event where people can gather and connect. Yes, like we will take our learnings from the running event and apply them at Switchback. That is what we want to do. We want to create, the running event plays a critical role in creating the culture of the running event and strengthening the running event, in strengthening the running industry.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to do that for the outdoor industry. So, we will see that we will use what we've learned there and, take it to the outdoor industry with Switchback.
Is that going to be inherently more of a challenge? Because, running is like there's trail and there's road and we're runners, right? Outdoor definitely, and I think these are some of the challenges we've faced with these events over the years a lot, right? It's kind of that there's a pretty broad definition of what outdoor is. even within our little like human powered segment of it, and then you have, again, you could point to the BEA report of like, oh, by the way, there's like 92 other categories of outdoor, of which running is probably included as one, right? Probably more in ours. But is that going to be, that might be a little more difficult to navigate versus just, hey, this is the running event, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. And, I think for now, our focus is in that core outdoor categories, right? We're not including skiing, biking. Like, we are going to stay focused on those core categories, which I think will help, right? And then, we're always listening and, want to evolve with the needs. But I think by staying focused on the core categories, but making it available to, the broad audience, we can drive real positivity and strength in the industry.
What have you heard from brands? I mean, what's the sort of feedback you're getting from? I mean, I don't know if you're already soliciting, trying to sell exhibit space or anything like that already, but what are you hearing from the brands and retailers too?
Yeah, so I'll start with the brands. Overwhelmingly positive. It remains positive, right? I mentioned, this we announced at the beginning of June, but we had started those conversations with brands well in advance, with that research study we did. And then, we went to them and said, okay, does this make sense? Is this something you would support? So it has been well received across the board. We are not signing contracts just yet, although we will be soon. So I can't speak to, who has committed, but it has been very positive. On the retailer side, similar, right? We don't know as many people, right? Like, so we're still just getting to know the retail side. So we've built some relationships, especially through Switchback at TRE. And, we really want to invite any brands and retailers who, have never been to the running event to come to Switchback at TRE, this fall. We want to get to know them and make sure that we're building a valuable gathering in June.
So I'm sure you listened. We recently had Wes Allen on the show, right? Speaking of retailers, who's a vocal retailer. He seems to be enthusiastic on the show, but his position is the timing of the show. And I guess, so it's kind of a two-part question. Like, was there, in part of that discussion with the third-party sort of analysis of like, should we have the show and when? Why June? And also, like, are retailers the primary target? Like, is that who you how will you measure success based off of who turns up for the show? Is it retail based? Is it brand based? Like, what exactly is the kind of the value of the show that you want to make sure you're bringing to the community?
Absolutely. It's the retailers. I'll start there. That's who we want. That's who we want to create value for. In terms of the timing, so I listened to the podcast with Wes. I thought it was great. At the end of the day, I don't see this as blowback. I just see it as kind of feedback. And
that was a clickbaity title, I'll admit. No,
but it's just feedback, and it's a point of view, and I understand where he's coming from. And I actually spoke with him last week, and it was a great conversation. It really comes back for him is the timing, but in this study that we did and, in any conversation that we have, it is June. It's a crowded time because it is the right time. Yeah. So by coming into June, maybe we change the trade show calendar, but for the event to be viable, we need business to take place, and that takes place in June. We will continue to listen and, to feedback, and, who knows what, is in the future. But for now, that June is the right time for business to take place, for buying conversations to take place. And at Switchback, we want, that to happen in addition to the connection and the education and celebration of the industry.
I think it's an interesting thing because and Wes is an interesting voice, and and Wes's experience really lends itself because he's a lot of different experiences both in the brand and the retail side, but he's a GOA dealer, so he's going to go to that show, right? And look, I had a wonderful time seeing that show a couple weeks ago, and that show for me is like, as a buying show, like, there you go, right? Here you go. It makes sense if you're in that organization. If you have achieved the level of GOA dealer, then you're going to go to that. Then you have outdoor retailer, which is kind of now presenting itself as more for we're going to shine the light on sort of the brands who perhaps wouldn't get the attention otherwise. So it's almost like, how does Switchback sort of fit into that mold as well, and kind of, and putting it in June against those other shows, at least for the first one, may actually make the most sense to sort of like see, okay, guys, here you go. Where do you want to show up? Frankly, if you're going to bump someone from the schedule, I'd say, hey, outside, do your thing in August, because you're basically a music festival, which is awesome. Good for you. But in terms of the shows where the work is going to get done, here are the three options. Where are you going to go choose to spend your time?
Yeah. And there will, some people will need to make a choice, and I think that's okay, right? We want to unite the industry. We don't want to splinter it. And so, we really see it as that. And, we're never going to, we're only going to celebrate gathering people together, right? So we are always going to be supportive of events and, be respectful. But we really do believe that we can create a valuable experience for the outdoor industry in a meaningful way.
So I guess my follow-up to that is, the thing that we experience, like I said, I think looking back at, when OR was the show and questioning the value at times, right? Other than in terms of a real measurable way, like we always would love going and seeing people, and there's value in all of that, right? But it was still like, to not have that, like, I know some business justified this expense kind of thing, either whether you're a retailer or a rep or a brand or whatever. So the interesting thing in the last few weeks is like getting to experience GOA, where it's like, oh no, okay, I see exactly why you would come to this if you're one of these brands, or if why you would want to if you're not currently able to. Even seeing Outdoor Retailer last week and saying like, wow, there's actually feels like there's a real purpose here that I never really experienced before. What do you want the people to say that about Switchback? Like, what is the value you really hope people take away from the show next June?
We really want people to walk away with quite a bit, right? So business is important, and that, like, the being within that buying conversation. But I think a big part of it is, in addition to the business and the education, I do think like we do that really well with the running event, and I'm excited to bring that to the outdoor industry. It's the gathering of people, right? I have heard on this podcast and in conversations the importance that OR played in building the outdoor industry and in so many of the organization and brands within it. And, the role it played in people's like personal and professional lives. And, that's what we want to create with Switchback, right? I don't think we can understate the importance of bringing the industry together and, the strength that happens. I think the outdoor industry has been living in silos for the past many years, and, strength doesn't happen in silos, right? So with Switchback, we want to build the future of the outdoor industry. And, that's what we've done with the running event, in the running industry. And of course, I wanted to say before, the outdoor industry is unique. And I want to make sure people, like, we aren't just going to take the running event and just put it over here and call it, an outdoor event, right? It, like, there's a unique and distinct personality, and we know that. And so, yes, we will take learnings from the running event and, all the goodness and bring it to Switchback, but it will feel different. It will look different because it's different. It's a different industry, with different needs. So
I'm curious if some of the things that people bring up, like, okay, there's too many things in June, or we aren't really sure what show is for who, that sort of stuff. Does that exist also in the running trade show space? I mean, I assume there's other shows besides the running event out there in the running world, but is that also something that your organization's had to sort of navigate purely on the running side?
It's a great question, and the truth is there really isn't. Especially, in the U.S., the running event is the event for the running industry. There are some smaller kind of summits, really all about education and peer learning and sharing. But when it comes to trade shows, the running event is the gathering place for the industry.
Have you? Forgive me if you've already covered this, but have you already sort of sketched out what the education segment of the show will be like? I mean, is it going to be leaving it up to the brands to sort of kind of go their way with it, or do you have your own sort of blueprint for how you want that to be unique?
Yeah, so we are still working on this, right? So we're a year out, to kind of put our stake in the ground and say, this is what it's going to be. And these are the topics. Like, we don't quite know yet, but we really want some focus on, the attendees will be specialty retailers, right? That is our core audience. And so we want to create education for specialty retailers. At the end of the day, these are small businesses. And so, yes, you want some education around sustainability and conservation. That is very important and will play a role. And in addition to that, how to run a small business, like, hiring and retaining staff and, diversity and inclusion in your community. We want to provide education that speaks to that, in addition to kind of those larger, important topics.
Would you like to hire the Rock Fight?
That's the question.
Mid six figures.
That's right.
Colin, what would we do?
Don't undermine the question. Just let her say, yeah, we'll figure that part after she says yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Surely.
I mean, yes, absolutely.
Perfect. We'll have our lawyers send you
the contract. Yeah. We have,
Well, I really wanted to, I wanted to ask if y'all had ever been to the running event. Colin, you've been years ago. Okay. Justin.
Yeah, I'd love to come back this fall. I mean, I went once when I was national sales manager for Pro Bar and then for GU, and then I pivoted into the textile space, which was great educationally, but not nearly as much fun. But it was there was a thing, and it is kind of, I think the education piece is underrated here. And actually, I'm glad, Justin, you asked that question, because that was, to me, that was a little bit of the difference maker. I think one reason why the running event will potentially endure in that space, which was outdoor retailer, because you do have that element, and the retailers do seem to appreciate it. And I think, I'm not just if you think about even how this all unfolds, and it's like, well, and the GOA, by the way, like, we're talking a lot about it. I think there's a long time when a lot of people didn't talk about the GOA. They kind of like to kind of stay quiet. But it's like, hey, if that's the level you want to aspire to, that you're accepted into that group, and then you get to come to this sort of invite-only show, it's like, well, here are you are providing resources potentially for retailers who are not going to get that from the GOA yet because you're not in yet. But now here's a show you can come to, you can learn things, you can hear from things. I mean, I imagine a guy like Wes could potentially present at Switchback, right? And think about how valuable that'd be if you've just opened up your gear shop, or you just bought it, or frankly, you've been doing it for 20 years. You might learn something at something like that, in addition to getting to go sit with, the product team at Patagonia or something like that as well, right?
Absolutely. And that's the formula that we've used at the running event is, a mixture of experts, like bringing in experts to talk about AI and, marketing, and additionally bringing in leaders in the industry, retail owners who speak about best practices and what they've experienced and how they've grown their communities, how they've got new customers, right? And so, like, that has become such an important piece of the running event, is that, like, peer sharing of best practices. It's one of my favorite things at the running event, right? These, like, a retail owner, in New York has become best friends with a retail owner in California, and they share best practices and they talk about challenges and opportunities. And, that is such an important piece of the running event, and, just creating that space for it to take place. It's really inspirational. And, I think
cool. The retailer, it's funny, they always talk about the retailers, and they're like, outdoor retailers called outdoor retailer. And we were talking about this, like, when's the last time anyone's handing out awards for the retailers at any of these shows? It's always so brand heavy and all of this stuff. And it's all, and I get it, the brands are sexy, and they're the things about the outdoor space that people point to because there's crossover appeal and all that everything. But if you kind of pivot it as, hey, this is the place for shops, everyone will follow. I really think so.
By keeping focus on retailers, the brands will come. If you have the buyers and, the quality, the brands will come. And so that is our focus, is building the relationships with retailers and understanding, what do you need from an event, right? That, like, anyone listening who has thoughts, like, I would love to talk about, what is it that you need from an event? What type of education would be helpful? We're here to build this event with you.
Not to beat a dead horse, I just want to again just applaud the Nashville decision. Not for the reason that I used to live on the East Coast, and traveling to Salt Lake was a pain. I always, when those surveys from OR, I'd always be like, just put it in fucking Chicago. Like, just put it in the middle of the country with a place with big airports, and had put it on Navy Pier where you could put. You can't fill the room they have, and then just make it easy for everybody. It's like, oh no, we have to be near the mountains. Like, no, you don't need to be in the mountains. It's fine. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I was nervous about it, right? Like I said, we've talked about this study, and like it came back to kind of do something east, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we can't be away from the mountains, right? But I'm really excited about it. And in the Nashville, like anytime we say Nashville to, a brand that we're talking to, it's like, oh, wow, interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? Yeah, they
nice,
sit up a little bit straighter. I had never been until I went to visit. And so I loved it. It has it feels like such a great community to host an event. I really think people will like it.
Well, and plus you're giving away free tours of Taylor Swift's studio, so that's going to be great for everybody. That's amazing that you're doing that.
Everybody gets a free Stetson hat. Yeah. It sounds like you're still kind of figuring out how you want the show to run. I was going to say, if you know already if you're going to be offering something unique for media, that'd be kind of interesting to know, but it sounds like you're kind of still sketching all that out.
We are still figuring that out. I'd love to talk with you all on what would make a valuable event for you. Media will play a large role. They do at the running event. We want to make sure it's valuable for you. So yeah, I would love to talk more about that.
So, I have to assume one of the nice things about Colin, I think, agreed, and so did our producer Dave, that it was nice that OR was so small because you could just kind of do the whole thing in like a loop. Everybody, of course, ignoring the sourcing arm of the show, but I assume this one will be situated in a sort of a switchback orientation, a lot of zigzagging. Maybe
if you spend more, like a higher paying brand, you get multiple switchbacks, so you go further up the mountain.
Yeah.
Of course.
Or perhaps it's sort of a ziggurat construction, so there are actual literal switchbacks that you have to walk up.
Right. Yeah. Build in some height. Yeah.
Take that idea.
The Tyrolean Traverse gets added in the year 2.
Yeah, and then, I don't know, Patagonia's at the top, or whoever your top brand is, or something.
Whatever spent the most, really.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be, if there's space, it would be sort of a missed opportunity if you didn't have the aisles set up that was sort of like snaking back and forth.
Totally.
I totally, and we talked about would it be possible, within the running event, Switchback, the Switchback area lives within the running event floor, and when we were kind of building that, I'm like, what if we built a trail that kind of snakes
like an
through?
IKEA does it. Why can't you? Get the IKEA designers on board.
I just couldn't make it make sense. And
I get it, and I'm sure it's a logistical nightmare. But that's one of those things where you think about the amount of people who would be like, "Wait a minute, these are switchbacks." They would be like, that's all anyone would talk about for 3 days.
Yeah, I know. We've had some fun. We built a trailhead sign for Switchback, and we've leaned in kind of a sign that looks like you're coming into a national park with the Switchback branding, But yeah, we gotta. I still really like that idea that you kind of go through. Maybe next year.
Yeah, our booth is by the third Switchback, halfway up. That's where you
right, exactly.
Us,
Yeah.
But anyway, well, Christina, thank you so much for joining us. Really excited to see how it all shakes out. Good luck in the next year. I can't wait. We're year out. I know you've got the running event in between now and then, so it's not like you don't need more to do. But at the same time, hopefully, can't wait to see the event next spring. Yeah, no, thank you, and please come to the running event, Switchback at TRE this fall. We can talk about that, but would love to have you, and be a great time. All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right, that's the show for today. Please send your feedback on trade shows and any other topic we talk about here on The Rock Fight to myrockfight@gmail.com. The Rock Fight is a production of Rock Fight LLC. Our producer is David Karstad. Art direction by Sarah Gensert. For Justin Hausman, I'm Colin True, and here to take us out, he's taking a break from promoting the new Less Than Jake song Broken Words to stop by and sing us the Rock Fight Fight song. Enjoy it, and we'll see you next time, Rock Fighters.